Hello and welcome back to the studio. Today, a little bit different because I'm actually painting in acrylics. What I've got here is a pre-stained canvas. Any decent quality canvas you buy, such as this Winsor & Newton canvas, is already double primed. What I've done is I've pre-stained it with a little bit of raw sienna. What I'm going to do next is slap a quick sky wash on and then do the drawing on top of the sky wash once it's dried. So here's to my Stay Wet palette, which is a real mess, but it's a good thing. A Stay Wet palette. You've got a little bit of paper on the top, underneath that a little bit of, it's almost like blotting paper. You wet the blotting paper, put the other sheet on top, and then squeeze your paint out on there. When you finish painting at the end of the day, just put the lid back on. Sometimes I'll keep the same palette going for about 3 weeks. So, to this sky, here we go. And I've got my 1.5 inch flat Cotman brush, which isn't even an acrylic brush, it's a watercolour brush. Cotman, really good quality brushes, but not expensive. A little bit of cobalt blue and a lot of titanium white. There's lots of different whites in acrylics, like there are in oils. There's titanium white, zinc white, flake white, mixing white, there's loads of them. Titanium white is a good standalone white, but also it's a good mixing white. Far less complex to stick to one white. Put a little bit more of it into the blue as I come further down. And this bit, just like decorating the wall. Side to side, bash it on. And you notice if I go on thinly enough, I'm leaving a little bit of the pre-stain showing through here now. A little bit more white. And I'm coming about 3/4 of the way down this canvas. Hardly any water into the mix. It's a slightly damp brush I've got there. A little bit more blue now. Yeah. Make sure that the canvas is filled in well, covered well. Push the brush in to the texture a little bit. A bit more white. And a little bit more white. Very, very simple process this. Don't fiddle about with it too much. Now, smooth it all out. About 3/4 of the way down. Now, I'm going to wash my brush out well. Squeeze it between your fingers. And just titanium white this time. Lots of it. Big chunk of white on that brush. And let's have a few clouds. A bit more there. Nice and thick and chunky, that paint. All the way down. Now, again, I'll wash my brush out well. Quick squeeze. This time I've got a little bit into my blue and white mix that I've got there. I'm putting a tiny touch of paint spray and a tiny touch of alizarin crimson. Alizarin crimson is very powerful and very strong. Be careful how much you put in. Put it down there. A little bit more paint spray, I think. That's a little bit stronger. Looks a bit of a mess at the minute. You'll be right. He said hopefully. A bit more there. And again, wash my brush out and a little bit more white. Just up there. And there. Now, from that mess, make clouds. All I'm doing with my finger, roll it in. Gentle strokes. Don't press on too hard. This is called digital art. Did you? Yes. A bit more there. I'm wiping my finger in between as I'm picking up lots of white paint. And stroke the dark into the light whilst I'm doing that. There you see. Give me the base of the clouds. And just rub. Now how easy can that be? A very simple sky wash. Without fiddling, and it's all good and wet and the paint is still movable. And all I need to do now is let that dry for about 10 minutes and then I'll come back and we'll carry on with the drawing. There you go. Now for a quick drawing, just any old pencil. And what I've got here, a little bit of a grassy hedge bit. This is actually the view at the back of my house in Acrylics, Northumberland. There's a little bit there. Just getting shorter as it goes further along there. Got some woodland there, a bit of a clump of trees, and here a little bit of distance. Bit more field there, and just off centre, big overgrown tree there. Bring it up. I don't want to fiddle about too much with twigs because I'm going to have this whole thing in foliage in a minute, full foliage. And a couple more further away there. Very quick outline drawing, don't fiddle about too much. Foliage on top of that. That'll do, drawing done. This time I've changed to my 3/4 inch Galleria brush. This is an acrylic brush. Again, Winsor & Newton. To me it is the best quality product. Winsor & Newton products. And I've got a little bit of blue, tiny touch of alizarin crimson, and a little bit of paint spray. And a touch more water into this mix this time. And all I'm doing, just fill in those hills. These are a long way off, don't start messing about with detail. And you can see straight away I've got a little bit more water into it. It's more see-through. A little bit more there. Slightly weaker there as it goes further away into the distance. Very, very simple stroke. Now wash my brush out well and just split those two there with a tiny touch of Naples yellow. Naples yellow, beautiful bright colour that one. Pop it on and drag it down. And then just feather the paint in slightly there like that. Tiny touch up there. And again, get in with your finger, just move it around slightly. And that'll do for the distance. Don't want it too strong. Coming further forward here, that's a little bit of a cornfield on the other side of this hedge. So again, a little bit of Naples yellow, this time with a tiny touch of raw sienna into it. There. And just block that in. Straight across. Again, I've gotten back to hardly any water into this brush, it's just slightly damp from the last mix. You'll notice there, just there, it's the underwash showing through. Now a tiny touch of white, just titanium white, and block that in on top there. Again, get in with my finger. And now to my number 8, round brush. Again, it's back to Cotman brushes, a watercolour brush, this one. I've got Hooker's Green. Never use Hooker's Green by itself. By itself, it's awful. As a mixer, it's a lovely colour. And I can mix that with every other colour in my palette. And I'll get lots of different greens. That's hooker's green and raw sienna, and a little bit of water into it. Just over there in the distance, I'm just blobbing on here and there. A few tiny touches. Bushy trees in the far distance. Another one there. And a little bit more there. Just stipple on. You don't want to make too much of those. They're a long way off. Clean up the bottom edge there. There. Distance that. How easy is that? I'm going to get that green a little bit stronger now. Green and raw sienna. And no water, it's just the damp that was on the brush. You stipple that lot in there. And all I'm doing there is just stippling the brush on to the canvas, leaving little bits of the undercolour showing through here and there. A little bit taller there, that's better. Now with the side of the brush, put it on, drag it up. And now, strange as it may seem, a little bit of blue, cobalt blue again, the same blue as in my sky. Have a little bit of that down there as well. Just gives a little bit more depth to the green where I want the shadowed side, which is on the right hand side. And again, with my finger, stipple on. Just tap it. Give a bit of a rough edge there. Now, a tiny touch of Naples yellow, just to brighten up that whole thing. Don't want too much Naples yellow. It's a very strong colour. And putting some light on top is a very effective technique. And with most effective techniques, people tend to think, oh, that's good, I'll have some more of that. And you overdo it. Keep your effective techniques to a minimum. There. And again, tap it. There. Now I'm getting into a little bit of fiddly detail here and there, but not too much so. I'm changing to my number 3 rigger brush this time, which again is a Cotman watercolour rigger brush. I really do abuse these brushes. I do my watercolours and I do my acrylics. As long as you're washing the acrylics out well, you're not going to ruin the brush. And it is a good sturdy brush and it will stand for a lot of abuse. I've got a little bit of raw umber this time and a tiny touch of blue into the raw umber. So I've darkened the brown. I've made it more of a sepia really. And all I'm doing with my rigger brush, pop it on here and drag upwards. Like so. Dip in, keep the brush loaded. And a few twigs coming out from the side here and there. But again, although slightly more detailed than we've done so far, this is further back than the main one over here. So don't fiddle with it too much. A few bits there. Now a little bit of light on top of there, again in the form of Naples yellow. I'm just putting a few hints here and there to that left hand side. Just drag down. There. Now back to my number 8 round brush, again Cotman brush. This time I've got my hooker's green and burnt sienna, not raw sienna. Put that into there. And this time with the side of the brush, look, round brush, the side of it. Put it on, drag it down. And again, put it on, drag it down. There, very, very simple trick. Again, a little bit of the blue, this time with a tiny touch of Payne's grey into the blue to darken it slightly. To that right hand side. Tapping on. you can tell the light is coming from the left. Now a little bit of Naples yellow again, brighten up the top and the right hand side slightly. Back in with my fingers, tap on. There, big trees. Into the really big tree now, and this one's overgrown on the actual tree trunk. So I'm making my brown a little bit stronger, but a little bit of Payne's grey into the raw umber this time. And I'm only putting the twigs kind of like 2/3 the way up the tree, there, like so. Notice the colours all getting stronger now as I get closer. Pull it up. A few twiggy bits, that's a technical term. I've got a lump there, but that doesn't matter. I shall just cover that with foliage. People often say to me, don't you ever make mistakes? Yes, of course I do. Problem is, I have them covered up so quickly, you never noticed. Until I point them out, that is. Now, a little bit of Payne's grey, just by itself. That's going down the right-hand side, here and there. You don't need to go everywhere. A few bits here and there, especially on the bigger bits. Like so. Now, a little bit of Naples yellow again, on the left-hand side. Just a few touches. It'll do nicely. Now, the reason why I've only done the twigs so far up the tree is because this lot is going to be overgrown. So I'm going back to my number 8 round brush. This time, Hooker's Green, Burnt Sienna, and a touch of Payne's Grey to darken it off even more. But what I'm doing with this brush, and this brush is about 7 years old, and it gets abused like this every day of its life, is I'm splitting it. Split the brush like that. See? What a mess. Now, stipple on. And again, stipple. Now, a little bit of Payne's Grey to the right-hand side. Split the brush again, so I don't get lumpy bits. Bit there. Now, I shall use my 3/4 inch brush, which, like I said before, is a Galleria brush made for acrylics. Hooker's Green and a lot of Burnt Sienna. Like that. Big chunk of Burnt Sienna into the green. Again, this brush, split this time, and stipple on. And you see how I'm covering a lot of those twigs. But where I'm leaving the gaps, you're still seeing that structure through the twigs. Now, wash my brush out again, a little bit of Payne's Grey. Split that brush and stipple on mainly to the right. Now a little bit of Naples yellow. Squeeze the brush out well, get my Naples yellow and split the brush. look at the light brought in by the Naples yellow. A bit down there as well. Get back in with my finger and just, technical term coming up here, squash some lumps. There, big tree, how easy can that be? I've just decided on a little bit more dark in here would be good. So I've changed to my round brush again. I'm just putting a few touches of Payne's grey in there. There, that's better. And a little bit there. Bit up there. Just to capture a little bit more shadow in the foliage. There, that's better. Now, back to my 3/4 inch brush. Good slosh out there. And I'm going to go in with Hooker's Green Raw Sienna. Hooker's Green, Raw Sienna, and a touch of Naples Yellow. Brightening it up slightly, look there. And very, very simply, come across here. Flick up, so I'm getting grasses, look there. Just pull the brush up slightly. Here. Flick upwards, get some grass. Going all the way across. Push in, pull up, push in, pull up. There. Now, a little bit of Payne's grey and raw umber to the right hand side of that look. Payne's grey, a bit there. Bit of raw umber there, have some down here. Just stippling at the bottom to the right hand side. And that kind of like ties this lot down to the ground so that it's now ready for the cornfield in the front. Wash my brush out well, and I'm starting off here with a little bit of Naples Yellow. No water into it, just a damp brush. Bash that on like so. Now, once I get up to this bit here, I've been a little bit careful because I don't want to drag too much of that green down into here. So push that up like that. Pushing it up. If I pick up too much of the green on my brush, wash my brush out in between. So that's okay actually. A little bit more Naples Yellow coming down here. This incidentally is being done in real time. There's not really any editing at all. I've made a couple of slips in my speech, but the painting is real time. Now a little bit of raw sienna, a few bits of that here and there. And you notice, look, slightly diagonal strokes coming down, see? Now, I do need to just let this dry slightly before I put final shadows into it. Shadows from the trees and so forth. So I shall just give that a minute. In the meantime, I'm going to go back to these grasses here. I'm going to have a tiny touch of Naples Yellow on the top. I just decided that. just a few little dabbles. There, just brightens up the grass ever so slightly. Now I shall let it dry, then come back and do the final shadows. This is just about touch dry now, so I can just go on with my shadow, which is very simple strokes. Again, paint spray, got that, and alizarin crimson, a little bit more of that actually, and a tiny touch of water, not much, just the corner of the brush dipping in there, just so it spreads slightly. Again, with my Galleria acrylic brush, I'm going to touch the base of the tree there with the shadow mix, there, bring it down to the ground, and then drag it across, like so, tapping on, so I'm leaving the undercolours showing through as well. A bit more there, and a little bit of that in from here. Touch the base of the tree again, drag it across. I'm getting there. A few little bits on the bottom, just tapping in where the grass comes down to the corner bit. And across here. And again, get it with my finger and just soften it slightly here and there. And that will more or less do that. Now that took about 20 minutes of actual painting, so it just shows you don't need to fiddle and mess about too much to get the effect of details. Use bigger brushes. I used a mixture of Cotman watercolour brushes and Galleria acrylic brushes. It doesn't really matter as long as you're washing them out well, they're not going to clog up. But don't fiddle, don't mess. There are essential pieces of kit. The paint I'm using are Galleria paint, Winter and Newton, and these come in big tubes and they're not really expensive. And my Stay Wet palette, which keeps my paint fresh all the time. That's an essential piece of kit. I really couldn't do without that. But I've got several books out worldwide which are on acrylics. Here's a couple of them. And I've got Boats and Harbours in acrylic and Ready to Paint Landscapes in acrylic. These are on sale worldwide, or you can get them from my website, which is charlesevans.com. Also, I'm on Twitter at charlesevans.art. And on Twitter, you'll find lots of different paintings, all stage by stage. Whenever I paint during the day, I'm putting them on Twitter so you can see them being done. Hope you've enjoyed this. Don't fiddle, slap some paint on. Bye bye.